Welcome back, Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Hema Ramksoon, and thank you for staying with us for this evening's discussion. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused an unprecedented human and health crisis. The measures necessary to contain the virus have triggered an economic downturn. And at this point, there still remains great uncertainty about its severity and the length of the situation. The latest Global Financial Stability Report shows that the financial system has already felt a very dramatic impact, and a further intensification of the crisis could affect global financial stability. Since the pandemic's outbreak, prices of risk assets have fallen sharply. At the worst point of the recent sellout, risk assets suffered half or more of the declines that the globe experienced or witnessed in 2008 and 2009. Now, to discuss the implications of these developments on the local market, Managing Director of Answer Merchant Bank, Gregory Hill, is joining us at this time. We're not just looking at the financial market, but also how is the banking sector and the financial sector evolving in this time of uncertainty? What opportunities lie ahead? Mr. Hill, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, good afternoon. Hema, how are you? A special good afternoon to your viewers as well.
Thank you, and again, welcome to the discussion. I want to start straight, obviously, with the discussion about the impact of COVID-19 in relation to your operations. You are head of Answer Merchant. What exactly did this mean for your operations?
Well, first of all, on behalf of Answer Merchant Bank, we certainly want to express our condolences to all those people across Trinidad and Tobago that were affected in some way by the effect of COVID-19, in terms of loss of life or friends or family or employment. We certainly want to extend our condolences, as well as to those nationals that are living abroad and also facing the same circumstances. And naturally, I would not want to forget our regional brothers and sisters. So that's the first thing. But COVID-19 has had a major impact on Trinidad and Tobago, the economy, banking, and Answer Merchant Bank as well. We've had to radically change the way we do business. And in some respects, it has worked wonders in putting through measures that we wanted to implement for a long time. Our priority, of course, was the safety of our customers and the safety of our staff.
You know, when you talk about the measures, because I know obviously you talk about your priorities and setting out the objectives, what are some of the measures that you had to put in place in Answer Merchant? You know, this has been a very steep learning curve for all. What are some of the measures and the adaptable measures and mechanisms that had to be put in place?
Well, because we are a regional investment bank, we operate in a region, we also have global clients. So we were able to take the lessons learned from our global clients and from conference calls, understanding what's happening in those economies and translate that into Trinidad and Tobago. As a matter of fact, the bank very early in March, we put in place measures immediately based on our learnings from around the world that we needed to put measures in place to protect our customers and our staff. We implemented sanitization of the offices, hand sanitizer on everyone's desk. We did work from home, staff rotation. We put in social distancing lines. We had, right across the board, we tried to minimize the use of paper and the transmission of paper. And these were things we put in place very early in March. And so when the restrictions came formally from the government's announcements, we had already started practicing a lot of these things. And so it was a radical change for us and our clients. And our focus was to try and be accessible to our clients who would have been in a very difficult position given the advent of the virus.
Now, you know, when you talk about these new mechanisms, what is the new client experience?
Yes, so naturally, we post-COVID, customers, will want to test and use the measures available, what I call omni-channels, all the channels available to do their banking. We came out with the concept of contactless banking, less contact, more banking. And we launched that the first week of March. The intention was to allow customers to reach out to our staff via WhatsApp video, WhatsApp calls, telephone calls, conference calls, Microsoft Teams, Outlook, Zoom, and we encourage our customers to call us and have face-to-face interactions. And many of the customers embrace that. And the new customer experience is a more personalized experience because of COVID. And I'm sure that the learnings and the experience that we have developed during this difficult time for everyone will transform the way we offer banking in the future.
Now, you talk about embracing technology, and you say some of the customers have embraced technology. If you had to give me an average, is it like 1 in every 10? Is it 50% of your customers? How many persons have actually embraced this technology? And let's even talk about staff embracing this technology.
Right. So to answer your question, a lot of the banks, collectively have introduced digital banking services, but the adoption rate hasn't been material. In Trinidad and Tobago, relative to other parts of the world, and the adoption rate has been less than 25%. It's actually much lower than that. And however, during COVID, many customers, banking customers, would have wanted to interact with their bank, and they were forced to slowly adopt the technology. So we are seeing an increase in the adoption rate and the use of technology by customers across the board. And I expect that is going to increase significantly. From the perspective of staff, I used to have staff meetings with all my staff gathered in the banking hall, and we'd have these meetings discussing our performance and ideas of how we could excite our customers. And within 1 month of COVID, my general staff meeting was held online with all our staff participating in an open conference call. So it was a fantastic experience, and the ability to be able to do that effectively was remarkable.
When you talk about this faceless customer interaction, customers who are, let's say, and I don't mean to stereotype here, but a lot of times older customers are a little hesitant to embrace technology. So there's concerns about, let's say, particularly in the banking sector, as with the medical sector, securing customer information. How do you assure and alleviate those fears?
Confidentiality is the cornerstone of banking. Banking is based on trust. And our watchwords are trust, confidence, and safety. So when you consider the sharing of information between a customer and their banker, it's one of the timeless traditions of confidentiality. So we embrace the latest technology to ensure that all our data is encrypted. The access to information is restricted, and we have the full range of passwords and the latest technology used to secure customer data.
Looking at the products and services that your company is offering at this time, what are some of the products and services?
Well, Hema, this is a difficult time for many businesses.
Have you rolled out any new products at all?
So what we've offered to deal with the situation, we've offered a loan deferral campaign where all our customers can apply and get their loan payments deferred for up to 3 months, and a very simple process that they can do electronically online. The application forms are all digitized, it's online, no need to visit the bank, and you can basically submit it online. And this will give you a breathing space. Companies that are not having turnover, they have stock, they can't sell, their costs are building up, and as a result of that, this loan deferral program will help alleviate some of these stress and pressures. It takes a lot to be an entrepreneur, and when you have a situation like COVID and the businesses are locked down, we want to step up and help those customers. We're also offering working capital lines of credit. We're offering financing for equipment. We're financing for the measures to put in place safety measures for customers. We're offering a range of products and services. And of course, on the capital market and investment banking side, we're looking at customers refinancing their debt, restructuring their debt, pushing it out for a longer term, trying to get better terms and conditions. And that's where we add value in terms of creative solution. So while digitization is making banking a little bit more of a commodity driven by technology, we think that the bankers and banking of the future will be judged based on the level of creativity and personal service given.
Now, Gregory, let me ask you this. You are quoted in the Business Guardian as saying that there's going to be a slow recovery of the economies. You specifically referenced the fact that there may be an increase in the number of persons who will be unable to make loan payments. What provisions do companies like yours would put in such a situation?
Well, the reality is, Hema, that globally, the effects of the pandemic on supply chain, the economies, employment, the global financial markets. I mean, it's been a tremendous shock to economies around the world. Most sovereigns are going to their parliaments to get approval to raise funding to supplement the economy in view of the current circumstance. I mean, liquidity is critical in a time of a crisis, and most governments have stepped up to do the same thing. So because of these events of the pandemic, there are businesses across the world that are under a lot of financial strain. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we're going to see companies experiencing the same sort of issue. They're going to have supply chain interruption. You're going to have a reduction in sales. Customers are going to think more about saving for difficult times as opposed to spending. So consumption may be down a little bit, and because of the fall in energy sector pricing, Trinidad and Tobago's energy sector, is being forced to rethink its business model to make sure it's more competitive. There are a couple plants that have shifted to idle because of these challenges. And I know that the government is working with a steering committee to come back to the population with strategies to.
But specifically, how are you preparing your portfolio to deal with this possible fallout?
Well, there's something called IFRS 9, which is a new accounting rule that requires all banks and companies to do a valuation of your assets. Mm-hmm. So in the local stock market, some of the stock prices fell significantly, and those valuations had to be translated into our financial statements and across the financial community. So if you look at the performances of insurance companies and banks, you would have seen them putting aside provisions due to these revised valuations on their assets. The same thing is happening globally. If you look at the UK, you look at the US, the same situation is taking place, and all companies have to value their asset books based on the current market environment. Now, of course, as the world opens back up for business, as the economies start back operating and commerce begins again, some of these forward-looking indicators will improve, and as they improve, those improvements will be reflected in evaluations of the stock markets locally and internationally.
So you're optimistic that things will improve?
We have to be. We have to be the change that we need to see, and companies like our Answer Macal Group, like Answer Merchant Bank, and others locally, we have to step up and play a role, the private sector, in stimulating economic activity. And the way we can do that is by providing creative solutions to our clients, supporting them, and being able to provide liquidity and to lend. In the last financial crisis of 2008, liquidity was absent, mm-hmm. and this kept the markets frozen for a long time. So the difference now, the central bank in Trinidad did lower the reserve requirements for the commercial banks and did put measures in place to allow us to defer our loans and not have them categorized in a particular way. And that decisive action by the central bank, and I want to thank the governor for stepping up and doing that so quickly, allowed us to respond to the needs of the market and needs of our customers.
How does the
so we are optimistic that things will recover in due course. It will take an extended time because of course, macroeconomic circumstances that exist around. But we have to be prepared for a new phase of Trinidad and Tobago.
When you talk about this economy and you talk about the role of private sector, how does the TNT economy transition from where we are now, COVID-19, to a new normal, whatever that new normal would be?
My hope and prayer is that we use this crisis. They say it's never good to waste a good crisis. We use this crisis to recalibrate our economy. We have thousands of graduates that are underemployed. Some of them are unemployed. We have thousands of small businesses that can't get access to capital, and very often the way the Trinidad and Tobago economy is structured, we take the rents from the commodities that we sell on the international market, and then the government distributes the rents from those commodities in terms of subsidies and transfers and projects, and the state plays a critical role with a reduction in those energy sector revenues. The economy needs private sector to step up. The economy needs the private sector to expand. The economy needs the graduates from our university that can stack up to any university in the world to step up and come up with creative and innovative ideas that we can export in terms of services. So my hope and prayer is that we come out with an economy that's more inclusive, that the distribution of wealth is much better than it was pre-COVID, that the SMEs will have an opportunity to rise up and get access to capital, and small businesses will start to flourish, and the state will play an enabling role in fostering and creating competition and commerce, and play less of a crowding out role where the state, we used to rely on the state to do everything back in the day. Now we will see private sector stepping up to do that. And that creates more opportunity for everyone. When
you talk about private sector stepping up, what are the risks to financial companies and, let's say, the financial sector? And are you strong enough to withstand those shocks?
Well, after the financial crisis, which was mainly a banking and financial system crisis that took place in 2008, the US and Europe put in place stress testing measures to test and stress test banks. And, when you look at, and the rules follow that, so when you look at the impact of COVID-19, yes, it's a global economic impact across the world. When you look at the local banking community, the local banks are well capitalized. There's liquidity. We haven't seen any major trauma associated with COVID on the local banking community. So we withstood the challenges of 2008, and the banks are stepping up and standing up quite strong in view of COVID. Now, of course, I did mention that our valuations of our assets have to be rebalanced and revalued based on the current valuations. But that is not something to say that the banks are in a precarious position, because the banks are actually well capitalized in Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, Gregory, I know we're against the time right now, but I do want to ask 2 or 3 questions again. What role do financial institutions like, let's say, ANSA, play in reviving the economy? Because there's a perception that the banks will take a hit. So to what extent is this even true, and what roles do you play in doing this?
Well, the banks will take a bit of a hit because we expect to see some delinquency in our loan portfolios, and with that comes expenses associated with delinquency. But we do have a place to play in terms of providing capital and liquidity to companies that want to expand, to restructure. That's the role we have to play at this point in time, giving advice to customers. A lot of my time is spent speaking to the CEOs of blue chip companies and small companies across Trinidad and Tobago and the region, even speaking to multinationals and helping them to try and get their foreign direct investment into Trinidad and Tobago. So that's the role we could play. We can be positive, we can provide good advice, and then we can provide liquidity and capital to assist with companies getting access to funding to be able to, expand their operation or commence a new project or acquire another business. I expect that some of the weaker businesses will be absorbed by the bigger businesses and businesses that have better capital. And that doesn't necessarily mean large companies, but even at a smaller scale, I expect to see some M&A activity taking place. And we certainly can play a role in providing advice and capital for those types of transactions.
What measures, and I have to ask you about the government, because I know that you sit in this position where obviously private sector and heading a major private sector entity, what measures might be required by the government to ameliorate these challenges?
Well, the government has a difficult task. I mean, the revenue projections for the country will be on the downturn based on the current energy pricing, and so their revenues will be challenged. The ability to borrow and use the balance sheet of the state is being exercised now to be able to stimulate the economy, raise funding for the health sector as well as housing and other sectors of the economy to drive the economy, create employment. So these are some of the things that the government is relying on. But, in terms of being able to provide the support for all nationals, they are doing there are measures in place, and they're doing things to help the smaller and the lower income group of Trinidad and Tobago. But the role of the government really is to play an enabling role.
And are they doing that? Are they doing that?
They are saying the right things. The committee that's been set up, is looking at the ease of doing business to improve the way that Trinidad and Tobago can do business. I think there's a lot more work that can be done in big data. We don't have access to reliable statistics and data that can be used for feasibility studies and modeling. And we have tons of graduates from university that can use that data, analyze it, break it down, provide trend analysis, and use that data to help create new industries. So that's one of the areas that we have to do some work. We also have to do some work in terms of our reducing the paperwork in the public sector. We need to get paperless. We need to get cashless. We need to create an enabling environment, allow for digital payments in a more effective way. So there are a lot of things that we need to do, and the government plays a role in creating that enabling environment.
Sure.
No longer can we rely on the government only for providing the capital injection to do everything, to turn the economy. The aggregate demand formula, as you know, is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So there are several factors in aggregate demand that drives the economy. And G is just one, government. Yeah. Right? So we need a consumer, we need investment. So there are a lot more things that we have to do as well. We can't rely on the state.
Gregory, I do want to thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us in today's program. We do appreciate you telling us what you are doing, but also your expectations. On behalf of the entire team, thank you again. And we take a very short break. When we come back, we'll have more for you. Stay with us. This is Navigating the Crisis, but we look this week at the opportunities that exist.